You're watching CN2 News. Two Chester County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's R.E.A.L.L. Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheikha Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, R.E.A.L.L. Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more.
Great evening, everyone. Good evening, Tammy.
Hey, Sheikha. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Yes. Good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We are welcoming parents, we're welcoming educators, and of course, we're welcoming the community, all members and authors, everybody. We asked you to share our feed and like it. Don't keep this wealth of wisdom to yourselves. Make sure you sign on and tell us where you're from. We are your problem-solving educators, and we know that we cannot solve problems alone. So we come together once a month to bring awareness and to bring our collaborators together to form a true alliance around real topics and to be able to hear one another's voices. Because we truly do believe that we are better together, especially when it comes down to our kids.
You're exactly right, Tammy. And we are very excited to have one of my former assistant principals with us, joining us for our guest this evening. And as you all can see, Tammy and I are together instead of separate. And my internet where we are isn't cooperating, where I'm getting this shared on my page, but I'm trying to get it going. But Mr. Roderick Fluellen from Columbia, South Carolina is going to be sharing with us tonight how he is keeping it real at his school. So I'm going to bring him up. Good evening, Mr. Fluellen.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. We're so glad to see you.
Yes, thank you for being with us. And we're going to give you your proper introduction by reading your bio, and then we'll get started with some of our other introductory things that we do on the show. So Mr. Roderick Fluellen is a proud product of South Carolina Public Schools by way of Richland County School District 2. He was fortunate and privileged to graduate from Richland Northeast High School in 2005. In addition to gaining the necessary skills and knowledge to become a productive citizen, he also learned the importance of being a hard worker in academics and sports. He was a member of R&E's varsity track and field 2001-2002 state championship team, junior varsity basketball team, and varsity football team. Such hard work provided the opportunity to attend Winston-Salem State University on a full football scholarship. In 2009, he took full advantage of that opportunity and became a first-generation college graduate. While pursuing a career that included coaching multiple sports, football, baseball, and basketball, he furthered his education and obtained a master's degree in special education and EDS, Leadership and Educational Administration, K-12. Over the course of his career, he has been fortunate to use education as the vehicle to work with many students, parents, and coaches, ultimately fulfilling his purpose role as a servant to the community. He has also been fortunate to gain knowledge that would help students and teachers reach their full potential. He considers himself a lifelong learner who is always looking to enhance his knowledge of not only his subject area, but also the world around him. As a current assistant principal, he's constantly seeking ways to improve his organizational skills, extensive planning abilities, and interpersonal skills to ensure he has a positive impact in the role of a school leader. Overall, he's had the privilege of being an educator for 11 years. Of those 11 years, 4 years have been in administration and 7 were in the role of a special education teacher. He and his wife, Dawn, also an educator, reside in Columbia, South Carolina, and they are the proud parents of 2 children. So welcome, 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 Mr. Fluellen.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Fluellen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
And as you all know, we are an educational show. So one of the things that we like to do, and I'm trying to do the banners too while I'm talking, is our On This Day in History. So surprisingly, this is Black History Month. And actually today on February the 7th, Mr. Carter G. Wilson actually launched Negro History Week on February 7th, 1926. So a lot of people make comments and they say things like, yeah, Black history is the shortest history of the month. And, you know, this is how we were given the opportunity to have Black History Month, but that is actually not true. And so when Carter G. Wilson first launched Negro History Week back in 1926, it was during the month of February. And what he wanted to do was make sure that the learning was extended. So instead of just having it a week, they extended it for a full month. So we'll do better now that we know better and stop saying that, you know, it was given to us, because it was actually started from his brilliance to make sure that we knew about our own history.
And that's the reason that Carter G. Woodson is known as the father of Black history. So
exactly,
we love that.
Definitely. And the other thing that we like to do is a quick little get to know you. So we're going to ask you a few little would you rather questions, and they're not going to be anything hard, Mr. Fluellen. Just so our guests can get to know you a little better. So in the honor of Black History Month, would you rather meet your ancestors or your future grandchildren or future offspring down the road?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I'd rather meet my ancestors so they can kind of just tell me their story of what they've been through, which I can then pass down to the future. Because I think that's something that's lost now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. What about you, Tammy?
I would rather read my ancestors.
Yeah, I think when I thought about it, I was thinking that, with my ancestors, I could read about them. So I would kind of like to see like what future generations would develop to be.
I mean, I can see both ends of that spectrum, but I would love to meet ancestors like in antiquity, just to hear, like you said, Mr. Fluellen, and just feed off of story that they could tell us that we could pass on.
Right.
And thank you for joining us, Rob, from Kim. What is Kim's school? The elementary school, Independence. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Ham.
An assistant principal at Independence. And the next question is, I'm not sure if you're the. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, would you rather have been the oldest or the youngest child in your family?
Well, I am the youngest, so I like being the youngest. Yeah.
And I'm the oldest, so I like being the oldest.
Okay.
Oh gosh, and I'm stuck in the middle, which I love. So, I don't think I would rather be anywhere else. I'm glad where I am.
And the last one, would you rather swim in the ocean at night knowing a shark could be nearby, or spend the night in a house you believed was haunted?
Whew. I'll have to go with the house that's haunted. Yeah.
Well, I don't swim in the ocean, so definitely have to be a haunted house for me.
Yes, I could pray that haunted spirit away from there. I'll be in the house.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us and allowing our guests to just get to see a different side of you. So before we get into the R.E.A.L.L framework, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into being in administration and education.
Oh, that's actually a good question. Well, when I was in college, I actually at one point wanted to be a social worker. However, at the time, Winston-Salem State didn't have an accredited social worker program. So I then majored into sociology, and I did an internship with a nonprofit organization entitled Communities in Schools. And from there, we went into different schools, worked with students they identified as at risk. And what I noticed was a lot of those at-risk students also were receiving special education services. So that's what kind of sparked me into going into special education. And then so once I actually got hired, once I graduated from college with Communities in School. However, like I said, it was a nonprofit, and unfortunately they went through a freeze. And so I said, I have to find something that's more concrete, that's more guaranteed. So because I didn't major in education at first, I had to go through something that was called lateral entry, which is very similar to the PACE program in South Carolina. And because of the classes I took in college, it was easier for me to get certified in special education than any other subject. So that's why I went the special education route. So I did, So I did 7 years as a special education teacher, and I always felt as though I wanted to assume the role of leadership in education. So I began to kind of start taking the classes to get certified to become an admin.
That's awesome. I also went through the PACE program. My original bachelor's is in business.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my concentration, I was early childhood, but I had a concentration in special ed.
Gotcha.
Well, again, we are honored to have you with us. As I stated at the beginning, we've worked together. You worked at Chester Middle when I was the principal there as the assistant principal, and you did a phenomenal job there connecting with students, teachers, and parents. So we're honored to have you on with us today.
Absolutely. So we're going to go on and get started and kind of just talk through giving folks a little bit of background on where the R.E.A.L. framework comes from for us.
Okay.
And Shika's dissertation work was surrounding Ron Edmonds' effective school correlates. And so a lot of those correlates are embedded in the work that we do because they are what have proven to be the things that create effective spaces and schools that are successful.
Mhm.
So, if you don't mind, kind of talk with us a little bit before we dive into the actual acronym, because we're going to go through each one of the areas, if that's okay with you, Mr. Fluellen.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
talk to us about what you're doing at your school to support that work, and what, like, the R stands for respect
Mhm.
for us, and that of course centers around creating a respectful culture and making sure that everybody is in a good space, and that students and staff, everybody is in a place where they feel that their SEL is healthy as well. Like
Right.
we're talking about, just creating that respect, where respect is the rule and the rule is respect. Talk to us about what that looks like, and how you're keeping it real through respect at your school right now.
Okay, well, that's a good question. For starters, though, I really think that this is one area that often get overlooked by a lot of schools, because a lot of schools, their main focus is test scores, grades, so they kind of overlook the whole respect, the whole culture, and unfortunately, they're not going to get the grades or the test scores that they want until they put some focus on the culture. So I truly believe like a school should truly focus on the holistic of not just the kid, but everybody. So some things I did this school year at Jackson Creek Elementary School was at the beginning of the school year, I hosted a free back to school haircut and hairstyle bash.
Mhm.
And what I did, I went to local barbers, local hairstylists, salons, and they all volunteered their time to do
It's nice.
free haircuts and hairstyles for many of our kids. So I did that coming in because I just know how big that can be for somebody to come to school on the first day with a nice haircut or a nice hairstyle. Another thing that I implement was a mentoring program. And with the mentor program, yes, we did allow just students who want to be a part of it, but some students that's in it, I kind of target based off students, let's just say, who needed a little bit more love or found themselves continuing making the wrong decisions. So I kind of want to let them know that, listen, I care about you, I want better for you, and I know you're capable of doing better. So
That's
those are just,
awesome, Mr.
yeah.
Fluellen. That's phenomenal. Did you bring your barbers and stylists on site, or did they just get to go out to the salons and barbershops?
That's actually a good question, and this is what, and it was on a Saturday, so I had to get permission from the district first to be able to be in the building on a Saturday. And they actually we set up the gym, and how I set up the gym, we kind of set up in different corners of the gym. So we had on the left side was the hairstylist, on the right side was the barbers, and the reason why I did that because some of the students that participated don't necessarily have transportation to and from the
Mhm.
barbershop. However, they can come to school because that's closer for them to get to. So
Mhm.
they held the event at the school. We provided snacks. We had a local restaurant donate some chicken fingers and everything for the participants as well as the volunteers.
That's awesome.
It is. I love that. And then just the basically like how that made the students feel as well as the parents, that you cared enough to go over and beyond to make sure that students were getting a good start to the year, that they felt good about themselves coming into the building. So I mean, I know that that went over very well with your parents and with your students.
Yes, they
And
was
Miss
very
Beverly, Miss
appreciative. Yeah.
Virginia.
They was very appreciative. In fact, it actually went over well with the volunteers too, to the point where they say they want to continue to make this an annual thing
Wow.
going forward. Yeah.
I
So
think that's awesome. I
Wow.
love that, bringing that infusion of the community right into the
Mhm.
school from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
Sheikah's right. When you come in, that's a big deal. The kids feel on top of the world when they come in there fresh on that first day of school. They are walking high. I mean, like stepping way.
Yes, ma'am.
So out the gate, you were knocking that out the park with that respect. And on our framework, that's the door, because like you said, a lot of people overlook that. But the reason we make it the door is because without that, you can't get to any of the rest of it. You can't
Correct.
get to excellence, and you can't get to instruction, and you can't get to anything until you build those relationships. And it's normally rooted in establishing that respect.
Right,
I'm
right.
gonna tell you something, Mr. Fluellen, and you know this because you've been here to work side by side with Sheikah, so you know how important it is to create that kind of climate in your school where everybody wants to do what has to be done because we want to move our school, and that's the beginning of school improvement, and we know this because
Right.
we had to live through that.
Yep. Yep. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of that staff with Dr. Sheikah Houston. That was easily probably the most I've learned in terms of being in education was that 1 year at Chester.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and we appreciate
Yes,
everything.
she
you did.
is something serious. Let's celebrate, right?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us, my Aunt Virginia, my mom, and our former guest and one of our collaborators, Miss Melissa Chunu,
Hey, Melissa.
out in Oklahoma. We're proud of her too. So the next part of the acronym is excellence. And a part of this has to do with setting high expectations for your students and staff. How were you able to do that and then also have that buy-in?
Okay, well, for starters, we are required to have X amount of number of walkthroughs per week in the current district that I work in. And one big area is I try to give them adequate feedback and suggestions that they can implement like right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also, to help, I'm big in sports and competition. So I created like a benchmark challenge amongst the kids, and based off their first benchmark, I kind of gave them like a projected score to get for their second benchmark. And if they were to get that score, then we would have like a pizza party or something to try to get them excited about trying to reach that goal. So I just give them feedback. Always, and I learned this from you and Principal Sean Hurt, but spending majority of my time in the classroom so we can know exactly what's going on. And so co-teach and just giving them that adequate feedback that they need.
That's awesome. And you did an awesome job at that while at Chester Middle. And that was one of the things that the teachers appreciated about you. And I think that's an area where they always want more. They want people to come in and give them feedback and see what's happening in the classrooms. They want the administrators there. So that is so important. And it's great that you are taking the time and took the time before to do that.
Yeah.
And like Sheikah said, I'm sure the teachers really appreciate that. And that kind of segues really well into the next part of the acronym, which is accountability. And you've kind of spoken to this already with there being a certain number of walkthroughs that you guys are expected to have in your district. But talk with us about how you are inspecting what you expect from your staff.
Oh, that's actually a great question. So in addition to just the competition, the benchmark competition, like I said, once I give feedback like on a certain area, the next time I go in that classroom to just do a regular walkthrough, I'm looking just in that area to kind of see if it's any improvements. So that's kind of like me expecting, what I inspect. Another thing too is when we go to like PLCs, I try to attend as many PLCs as I possibly can. So just to show the teachers that it's serious, that I'm a part of their team and we all in this together. So just being visible, giving them feedback. also too requiring teachers to bring data. I know that's one area that is in need of improving at a lot of schools. Just bringing data and be able to utilize that to drive instruction and actually teaching them how to use that data to drive instruction, because a lot of schools, they collect data often, but they don't know exactly what to do with it, or they don't use it going forward. So just kind of just teaching them and just together, like we in this together.
And that's really good because, again, the teachers want to feel like they have support. So providing them with that support, I know it goes a long way. And I like the part where you talked about having the data, because you're right. A lot of times we sit around and we'll talk about data and we'll talk about things, but we're not necessarily using the data to drive what we're doing next. So just sticking with that process. So the next part of the acronym is literacy, and ensuring students are performing at high levels in reading and math. And I want to say good evening to Miss Dot. Thank you for joining us. Oh, you can go ahead, Mr. Fluellen.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to literacy, well, for starters, at the beginning of the school year, over the summer, from looking at the data, we saw that reading is an area in which we need to improve on. So I did a poll of the parents and the kids to find out who has books at home and how often do they read over the weekend and at home. And from that findings, it wasn't many books at home, and a lot of students wasn't reading over the weekend. So I started something called Lit Weekend, in which I read a book and I send it out to the teachers so they can send it out to parents, so students can at least see some type of reading over the weekend. And so I believe, like, once they see the reading over the weekend and try to make it like a cool thing to where they want to do it. And I think another big thing is just making sure that we have relevant cultural books inside of the classrooms. And I also tell the teachers, let's find out what the students are interested in, and then we can get books surrounding those topics. And another thing too, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was guilty of this at first. We kind of use reading as like a punishment, and that made students not want to do it. But now we have to make it like something they enjoy doing it.
And I appreciate your transparency with that, because sometimes I think I've used writing before as a way, when I was in the classroom, to teach children lessons, but we should not use academic things as a way to teach them other lessons that we're trying to get them to learn. So
definitely. And one of the things that is important for us, Mr. Fluellen, because we are heavily committed, and this really honestly started around literacy. Sheikah and I are both real passionate about literacy, but we've added to the discussion numeracy, because we also know that you have to be literate in math and be very versatile to be a good student. And that's what we want to produce, excellent students. And one of the things that we heard that you have instituted is the Math Bowl competition. So talk to us a little bit about that, because you also are keeping it real in math. So
yeah. So the Math Bowl competition. So basically, our district, we have district benchmarks at the end of each 9 weeks, in which the whole entire district takes the district benchmarks. And so what I do, they kind of gave us like a pacing guide. And say, for example, benchmark 1 is going to be on everything that was in that first 9 weeks pacing guide. So to help teachers stay on pace, I created a Math Bowl competition that we do every 9 weeks, like a couple of days before the actual benchmark. So that's kind of served as a review, but it also makes sure that the teachers hit every standard that we know that's going to be on the benchmark.
Have you guys, since you've done it twice, I'm guessing now?
Correct.
How has that looked for you all?
Well, believe it or not, I honestly can say in the area of math, when you look at our benchmarks in comparison to the district benchmark, and I'm not going to say it's just because of the math bowl, but I can say that it's a strong correlation of the kids that do well on the math bowl and the kids that do well on the benchmarks. And I can say across the board that our math scores are above the district in terms of the benchmark scores. Now we still have to work on reading though.
Well, we say congratulations. And we will attribute at least some of that to the math bowl competition.
Yes, right.
I think it's a great idea.
And one of my interventionists actually wanted to implement a math bowl at his school because he saw where students were, they, like you said, they like competition. So he was using Blooket to have them compete with math, but he wanted to turn that into a math bowl. So I might have him get with you to see how you organize that, and he might be able to take it and do that.
And I've got a totally competitive staff. They love that kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, we are the grade level.
Okay, yeah, please.
I think
I send them everything I have.
And the last part of the acronym is leadership, which kind of leads into your mission, your vision, and your systems. Talk to us about the things that you have in place to enforce, those mission, visions, and systems.
I think it kind of ties back into the first part of the acronym in terms of culture. So what I try to do, I try to build relationships with everybody. So in the morning I walk, I speak to everybody. Good morning, how you doing? I'm over buses. So as the kids enter the school every morning, I give them a fist bump, tell them we're gonna have a good day, and I do the same thing in the afternoon. But I think just try to be the example that you want to see in the school. And I try to lead by example.
That's awesome. And you definitely did that while you were at Chester Middle School. One of the things that I attribute to you was the news program that really got students engaged. They looked forward to seeing the new program drop and also seeing themselves if they were included in it. So it was really something that kind of helped shift the culture of the school and made them buy into a lot of the initiatives that we were putting in place.
And it was really a good program. And was that Melvin?
Yeah,
Melvin really. I was excited to watch. I'm like, oh, let me watch Chester Middle doing big things.
So one of the other things that we know, you've also started for your students, and I think you've made it available, and we list you as one of our partners, is your Lit Weekends.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that and why you started that.
Okay, so what I do, I just find different books, but I try to find books that reflects our student population. So every now and then I might find a book with like an animal main character, but I try to find character that reflects our student population, because oftentimes they don't have that experience of seeing a book where they can see themselves in that book. But I started the Lit Weekend based off the survey that I took earlier, and then I just wanted kids to see themselves in books, and I truly believe that's why a lot of our kids shy away from reading, because they can't relate to the characters or anything. So I want to let them know that there are books out there that you can relate to it.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you were thought to start that. And you're exactly right. Being able to connect to the text is very important in order to make sure that they're receiving what they need to receive from it to, connect with the literature.
How has the participation been, Mr. Fluellen?
So the numbers have gone down over the the course of the year. However, it's still a lot that tune into it. What I usually do, I record myself and I turn it into like a little video, and I send it in the link, and the link I make sure I change the setting to anybody with the link can see it. So it'll tell me like the amount of views that it has. And so for the first couple of weeks, I thought I was gonna go viral. But here lately, it's starting to go down a little bit. But there are, if it's just one, that's enough for me.
Right. And you have to remember, like the spring, and I know that we're in the middle of February, which is winter, but spring sports have started and spring practices have started. So don't let it discourage you, because you'll probably see it pick up once people fall into the routine of fitting it all in. These next few weeks.
Yeah, the most rewarding thing though was when I have kids come on Monday and say, "Hey, I saw you read on the so that's rewarding." Yeah,
that's good. Well, we have chosen one of your lit weekends as our story time for this evening. And we like to, we started story time at the beginning because we started our platform during COVID. So we knew that read alouds, and we wanted to model that for parents and also help inform them about the benefits of story time. So it helps children get to know sounds and words and language. They develop early literacy skills. They learn the value of books. It sparks their imagination and curiosity. And for older children, it's a really good way to connect, teach them lessons, build relationships. We actually visited a high school today, and she's a math teacher. She was a former math teacher, but she's a principal now. But she talked about how even in her math high school classes, she used storybooks with high school students. And she said they would sit around her feet and listen to her, listen to the story, but it connected to her math lesson. So sometimes we take for granted older children don't like storybooks, but they do. They love a good story, and even adults like a good story. But one quote that we like to quote is Frank Serafini. There aren't children who hate to read. There are only children who have not found the right book. So that goes back to what you talked about being intentional of finding books that really relate to your student population, and also making those books available in the classrooms. So I'm going to share my screen. And if you are tuned in for at home, if you would get your little ones for story time and just hang out with us for a minute, Mr. Fluellen, and after it goes off, we'll come back.
Okay. What's up, scholars? Welcome to another episode of Lit Weekend with Mr. Fluellen. Today, I'm going to be reading a book entitled Speak Up. There are times we should be quiet. There are days for letting go. But when matters seem important, speak up, let others know. With so many ways to speak up, like a sign, a smile, a shout, if we could make things better, why not let our words come out? When you're being introduced and they get your name all wrong, speak up. Say your name. You are you, and you belong. When someone spreads a rumor and you're sure it isn't true, speak up. State the facts. Truth can open up our view. When a rule just isn't fair or has gotten much too old, speak up. Work for change. Justice comes when we are bold. When a person wounds another with their words or with their fists, speak up. Be an ally. Safety comes when we persist. If you see someone who's lonely or they're having a bad day. Speak up. Share a moment. Kindness goes a long, long way. When you make a small mistake, even if you didn't know, speak up. Say you're sorry. Learn to listen. Learn to grow. When you have a special day or you're given something neat, speak up. Shout your thanks. Gratitude makes life so sweet. When you're sad or packed with feelings and the world seems dark and gray, speak up. Ask for help. Friendship chases clouds away. When trees and creatures suffer from our quick and careless choices, speak up. Rally others. Nature needs our mindful voices. When you know a scary secret about someone getting hurt, speak up. Tell a grown-up. Courage sometimes means you blurt. When the group is taking one path, but you know it's not the way, speak up. Change directions. Leaders don't always obey. While some people speak up loudly and your words might whisper quiet, one voice can make a difference, so don't hesitate. Go try it. The end. Thank you for chilling with Mr. Fluellen for another episode of Lit Weekend.
We're on mute. Awesome job.
Thank you.
And I like how you've added the music in the background.
It's very nice.
Awesome. And I don't know how you send it out. Do you send it to the parents or the
Yes, so I sent it to the teachers in a link, and then we also use something called Parent Square.
Mm-hmm.
And that's directly straight to the parents. So I send it off there and also send it to the teachers so they can send it.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
And if you all have a social media page, if that's permissible,
Yep.
that'd be a good place to share it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Post it on your website, everywhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Because parents would appreciate it. Sometimes they might be too tired, but it's easy to say, "Hey, here's Mr. Fluellen, your assistant principal. Listen to him read this story."
Yeah, and I'll sign your read along.
Right. And that book was very diverse, so I liked that as well. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for everyone that tuned in. If you all would, to help our algorithm, make sure you're sharing with as many people as possible. And make sure you tune in with us on Saturday for our Saturday PD at 10:30. At 10:30, we're happy to be a part of the Fantastic Four with Principal Sean Hurd starting at 10 on Saturdays, and this is Eastern Time. Tammy and I come on at 10:30. Right now, we are talking about the salvation of the Africana child, and talking about a club that you could potentially start at your school for students to learn more about their history and their cultural background. And then on right after us is Principal Kafele at 10:55, and then on Sundays is Unlock the Middle with Dean and Josh at 7. And if you would visit our website at www.createandeducate.solutions and follow us on all of our platforms so that you can get the notification when we go live. For right now, I don't think I've shared it to all of the groups because, like I said, the Wi-Fi where we are is a little wonky, but I will get it shared out so that more people can see it. But thank you again for joining us, Mr. Fluellen.
No problem.
The great work. Proud
Yes.
of the work that you're doing. And did you have any closing remarks?
No, I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be on this show. And I also want to tell people if they're missing the Fantastic Four on the weekends, they're missing a treat. The work that you all are doing is amazing, and please keep up the great work. It's just sometimes I'm just wowed by all the information that you all are willing to give out for free. So please continue to keep doing that.
You're such an inspiration, Mr. Fluellen. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. And that comes from the place of when we knew that we needed help. Mm-hmm. We had to reach out to help from afar. So that's just our way to pay it forward. So right. We appreciate you. And thank you all. Good night, everyone. We'll see you Saturday.
Have a great rest of your week, guys.
And you can hang on for a minute, Mr. Fluellen.
Okay.